thanks so much for joining us, my friend. How's everything going, man?
Doing fine, making the best out of a crazy time.
Well, it has certainly been that, but I'll tell you this, for football junkies like us, when football season starts, it kind of lessened the blow a little bit. It returned us to a little bit of a normalcy, whatever that word means. Although now we have cancellations and postponements. We're in Missouri. Missouri, Vanderbilt gets moved, Florida and LSU as well. So there's still some hurdles along the way here, I guess, shall we say.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what's it been like? I mean, you've seen the Florida Gators play a couple games here. Kyle Trask looks like the real deal, losing a tough one though to Texas A&M. What do you make of Dan Mullen and the Gators so far, man?
Well, I'm super pumped with Mullen. I was happy when we got him as a coach a few years ago and have been incredibly impressed with so many aspects of him as a coach. I'm also a huge Kyle Trask fan, which at this point is not a hard thing for anybody to see. But early on, even the few times he got in early in games, I thought there was something special there, and his story is outstanding. So everything's bright, except we have a really struggling with our defense right now that makes it really difficult to win games.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of your life and what's been going on with you. I know you've been busy. You've been doing so much and doing so many, influencing people in such positive ways since your pro football career ended in 2004. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what your life has been like lately, where people can find you. The website's dannywuerffel.com and can kind of see what you're up to, whether it be public speaking or what I believe is a tremendous thing that you're involved with, which is Desire Street. Kind of talk to us about those avenues for you and kind of how things have been going lately for you, man.
Yeah, well, I tell you, my life's kind of broken up into a couple segments, and there obviously was my college and professional football career. But after that, I've been involved deeply with a lot of different things. My main role is as the executive director at Desire Street Ministries, and we work in very under-resourced neighborhoods all over the South. We partner with leaders that live and serve there that don't have the training or the resources they need to be effective. So we get a chance to partner and make a difference in thousands of young children's lives and families that often don't have the same opportunities that perhaps you or I did. And it's been incredibly rewarding, but also very, very difficult. There's lots of challenges. So that's been really exciting. Desire Street has been, as I said, a big part of what I'm doing. And, life seems like when you're young, it's a long time, but as you get older, those years go by quicker, and you just have to think very carefully how you spend your time in your life. And I want to live a life that makes a difference.
Do you think football prepared you kind of for this in any way? I mean, you're drafted in 1997, by the New Orleans Saints. You play there for a few seasons, and you play pro football until 2004. But do you think the game of football, with kind of the idea that it brings people together in so many different ways, and there's so many different life lessons to be learned from it, do you think that kind of prepared you for what you do now?
I think so, a lot. I think there's some very unique lessons that are hard to learn in the classroom. In fact, I think one of the reasons they developed, interscholastic football in colleges was to teach young men lessons they couldn't learn in the classroom. That was one of the reasons it started. And, I think of things that, just the reality is so simple, a few simple things that are so profound. I mean, life is tough. It really is. And you learn that in football. It's tough. You learn that it's not about you. It's about your team, that no one person is all that important. You learn that there's things that are far outside of your control. There's just so many incredible lessons that you don't just learn, but you experience. You sweat into these lessons. You sometimes bleed or break into these lessons that really stick with you for the rest of your life. And I mean, there's several times where I've been knocked down in a lot of ways, and things that are happening with life. Hurricane Katrina impacted us deeply. We lost our house, and a lot of things went wrong. Several years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder and was paralyzed for a while and literally knocked down. And I think back to Florida State, 1996. They beat us. They knocked me down 32 times, but you just keep getting up. And then eventually we got a chance to beat them for the national title after that. So, sometimes the best thing you can do is just get up, and lessons like that from football are part of my everyday life now.
Absolutely. And you're a Florida great, Danny. Just talk to us about Gainesville. Over 90,000 fans inside Ben Hill Griffin, the striking orange and blue colors, the swamp, the chomp. What makes Florida a special destination in the SEC?
Man, well, I'll be honest. There are some very special places to play. A lot of electric stadiums, but I am impartial to the swamp. I think there's a brightness about being in the sunny Florida weather that really creates a dynamic. I remember the first time I ran into the swamp as a redshirt freshman. I can't even describe it. It was almost like you went into a cartoon land because all around you, it was just colors. Like it wasn't like real life. And then it was deafening loud and just such a great opportunity to play there. Great home field advantage, great fans, and a great stadium.
Well, a couple years ago, you got to sit down with another Heisman Trophy winner from the University of Florida, Tim Tebow. I took a lot from that interview because it was taken aback by it because Tim talked about how he got your autograph at a church when he was a kid and how big a fan of Florida he was. And it made me realize that, and especially with what you're doing now, kind of tying it all together, is that you never know who you're influencing. That's a big lesson in that, to take that someone like Tim Tebow, just as a kid, as a normal kid, going to church and going to school and being a fan of the Gators, winds up kind of being influenced by you and taking on a similar role in his life. And what was that like, kind of sitting down with Tim and sharing some of your guys' experiences?
Well, so often you don't know the impact of what you do. And so at times when you get a chance, a glimpse to see it, that is really rewarding and special. And, I don't necessarily remember that event or that time or when he was a young boy, but he does. And, I think that the other thing I'd want to add there is, it's easy to think that, well, if you can influence someone that goes on and does great things, then that's sort of a measure of success. But I think it's so much more profound than that. I think about, if there was a dad one time along the way that was discouraged and I helped give him a little inspiration to go care for his kids more, you're not going to see that on ESPN, but that can make a big difference. If there's a kid who wants to give up, if there's, anything happening that you can make a difference, you never know. And so I really try to, live. There's a kind of a line that a mentor in college, told me, and it's been used in different ways, but that God cares a lot more about our faithfulness than success. We can get so caught up in what does success look like, whether on the field or whether in impacting other people. But if you focus more on being faithful, whether you're training for your next practice or your next game, or whether you're being faithful and serving someone else, I think that's the measure we can hold ourselves to.
Very well said. And Danny, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about there's a lot of special destinations in the SEC, not just Florida. Just whether it was the sights, the sounds, or the overall total atmosphere, what were some of your favorite road environments that you experienced in the SEC?
Well, what I'm about to say is going to sound a little bit cocky, and it is. And it's also hopefully a little bit true, in that a lot of the really, really amazing loud stadiums got really quiet after about, the first quarter when we played them. And so, I played in some places where Death Valley and LSU Stadium is amazing, but we got them quiet quick. The Neyland, Tennessee Stadium, when we played Peyton in 1995, I think it was, 96, it was the most people ever to watch a game in a stadium, and we scored 4 straight touchdowns. And so fortunately we were in some pretty neat places that didn't get as electric against us. Now, ironically, and I think related, the game we lost on the road in the SEC, only lost one road game in the SEC in 4 years, and that was at Auburn. And that place got pretty loud. So that's pretty neat. I've also had a little bit of a unique experience afterwards now to go to some of the stadiums and experience it. And that's obviously a very different way to experience a game.
Well, kind of growing up here in Missouri as we did, we're watching the Big Eight growing up in the 90s, but seeing Florida emerge the way it did under yourself, Steve Spurrier, and kind of just something about the colors and the stadium, and it just kind of overtook what were watching in college football. Just kind of talk about that, because we've had some of your former teammates on. We've had Jacquez Green on the show. We've had Travis McGriff on. We've had so many guys that were a part of this. There was something truly special about the dynamic that you guys built during that time. And people that didn't really watch the SEC or were from, Missouri at the time, not in the SEC, really took to what you guys were doing because of that offense. It was just a truly special time for college football, was it not? In the SEC, that was just really unbelievable and unprecedented.
Yeah, well, I remember, a decade before that, when I was a youngster, we lived in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1983, and I watched Mike Rozier win the Heisman, and sort of the perennial teams. You're looking at Nebraska and Oklahoma, and then Miami, and all these teams, and as we moved into the 90s, sort of to think that I was part of something that emerged. That prior to that was a very average college program, and to be a part of that with Steve Spurrier and to put Florida on the map, to have people recognize our logo, to all those things are great, but then also to help sort of move the game along to the next level from where, especially the SEC was the Herschel Walkers, the Bo Jacksons, just pound it, and then we come along and start throwing it all over the field and having success, and then see sort of how the game has evolved. It's great to know that I was a part of that as well.
Well, just talking about that, we were talking about Steve Spurrier. Just what are some of the biggest lessons that he taught you, and just why was it the right decision for you to go to Florida and be under a coach like Steve Spurrier?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, at least for me, what football meant was throwing the ball to your buddy, and he runs a route and you throw it in front of him and he runs and catches it in stride. And that's the most fun part of football. And to have the opportunity to do that with a coach that's brilliant at that and throwing all over the place was just a dream come true. And, he embodies a couple things that are unusual to have in one person. He has this insane attention to detail, and the way he would coach routes and the way he would coach the drop backs. And I mean, your head position on every play had to be perfect. And then he pushed for this preciseness. But then on the other hand, he also had this very flexible, fluid, okay, well, if they're going to do that, you be the bottle cap and you're going to be the leaf and you're going to run up there and turn right, and he'd make up plays on the fly. Whereas most coaches that are that precise are going to really be, overly cautious and wouldn't run a play unless you practice it 100 times. But he has this precision and flexibility in one package that I think is really, really powerful. And that plus several other lessons and experiences, certainly I would say playing for him has altered the trajectory of my life in a great way.
Well, Danny, we've had the pleasure of going on the road and covering the SEC now. We're finishing up actually a film where we went to all 14 different SEC locations, interviewing great players from the past, such as yourself. They all kind of had a theme, and I want to ask you about it because you're drafted into the NFL in 1997 by the Saints. I mentioned that earlier, but so many of the players, whether it be someone that went on to be an All-Pro, Super Bowl champions that we've interviewed, they all said that no matter what in their lives, they look back and it was their experience in those 4 years at the college they went to, that there's something about that embodies their entire lives were embodied in those 4 years. Is that something that you would say kind of as accurately describes you as well? I mean, I know that your pro football career wasn't super long, but still you make it to that level. It's a tremendous accomplishment. But do you think it's the college years that you kind of harken back to as your best years playing football?
Yeah, I think so. I would probably nuance that a little bit in that, that the high school experience was unique and different and really, really shaped me in a lot of ways. Obviously, the college experience and the success that we had, the lessons I learned kind of shape a trajectory for my life. But I would also say, even though my NFL career was not near as successful as my college, obviously it's an understatement, still the experiences, the people that I met, that's where I got involved in New Orleans with Desire Street. So they each sort of have I'd say a different role in that. But there is something special, I think, about college, something special about being in the SEC. The competition is so high, the level of intensity is so high. Not a lot of people can say they go to play in the NFL where the stadium is less attended and less noisy. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing to say you move to the next level, and in some ways things are smaller than in your college experience.
Yeah, and they say that the SEC, like the slogan is, it just means more. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it does mean more in the SEC in the South? I know there weren't a lot of pro sports back there back in the day. And so there's this tie, there's this bond with the communities and the universities and their football programs. Why do you think that is?
Probably several things come into play. I mean, I think you're in the South. There's really emphasis on football has sort of continued to be king, whereas in other parts of the country, other things have developed more. I think that the programs have gotten great support from the boosters, and just, it takes time to develop these programs, and you get the right coaches in there. I think there's also leadership at the conference level. But yeah, it's pretty fun. One of the things is when you do play in the NFL, everybody, a lot of the arguments you're arguing about how good your college team was and how good your conference was. And it was pretty healthy and safe for me to enter those arguments coming from Florida and coming from the SEC, because it's pretty hard to argue there's another conference that's near as dominant or as tough as the SEC.
Well, I'll tell you what, Danny, before we get you out of here, we got to do our first and goal segment brought to you by 500 Level. 4 quick questions. We're going to start at first and goal. We're going to get to fourth and goal. We're going to get into the end zone, hopefully by the end of this. Whatever comes to mind, 4 quick questions, and whatever answer comes to mind. Are you ready, sir?
Okay, I think so.
Okay. Where is your Heisman Trophy, and why is it not right behind you?
Heisman Trophy's downstairs. It's sort of next to the fireplace. We put some of our trophies. That's there. Some of the kids' trophies is sort of the place where we display it. Quick funny. Do you want a quick funny story, or do we need to go?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
First quick funny story is we used to leave the Heisman at my parents' house when I first won it. And so when Katrina ruined our house, fortunately the Heisman wasn't there.
Wow.
My parents. And then when we did get it, we didn't have any furniture, so we put it on the floor. And my 2-year-old son went running into the room, tripped and fell, and hit his head on sort of the corner of the base of the Heisman Trophy, gashed his head open, and now has the coolest scar ever.
It's a great story. We're glad everything turned out well. The next one, although you silenced a lot of stadiums, what was the loudest stadium that you played in? Was it Jordan-Hare in Auburn at that time?
Probably intensity-wise, yes. I mean, the beginning of the Tennessee game, I think there was 107,000 fans in 1996. May have spiked up there as well. Yeah, some great places.
Okay, so I've got to preface this next win by saying that we had the honor of meeting Steve Spurrier for the making of this film. And he is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And, he found out we're from Missouri, and randomly we're talking about the 1966 Sugar Bowl, in which he fell short apparently against the Missouri Tigers back then. And he remembered every second of that. What is the most random or funny thing that you ever remember Steve saying to you in a non kind of football capacity?
Well, I may bring it back to football because it's too good to pass up. But on one of my first interceptions, I thought the receiver ran the wrong route. So I was hoping he would see that and blame the receiver and not me. And he came onto the field and he scratched his head. He said, "All right, Danny, don't worry. It's not your fault." So I took a deep breath and he goes, "It's my fault for putting you in there. You're out." So that was one of my favorite Steve Spurrier lines.
That is great. Well, it's fourth and goal here. We got to punch it into the end zone. So what is the craziest fan interaction that you've ever had or encountered?
Let's see. Fan interaction. I had someone invite me to a funeral for somebody who's a big Gator fan. And so I showed up, and then when I got there, they brought me back into this room in the church where there was the whole family, which I thought was a little awkward because I didn't know any of the family, but I kind of went along with that. And then they wanted to introduce me to the pastor about my remarks. And I said, "What?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we want you to speak." And so it was this 1,500 person crowded funeral. And that was awkward. But then I ended up sitting in the front row, kind of by the widow. And then when they got up after the funeral to take the casket out, which is sort of first, and everybody else stayed. The family was gathering to go in, and the pastor mentioned to me to get up with the family. And when I walked to the middle, it was the widow, and then she grabs my hand. So just picture full church, casket, me holding the widow's hand, and the rest of the family behind us. And I finally just went in and just started nodding at people and acting like it was normal to be there.
Well, I think there's some shenanigans at play here. They obviously didn't go to DannyWuerffel.com and book this situation, and that's a little bit of a loophole, and I don't think that should be celebrated going forward whatsoever. But that's hilarious, and I'm sure of anyone that can make the best of that, it would be you, my friend. That's pretty good.
That's kind. Thank you.
Well, Danny, we can't thank you enough for joining us and for everything you're doing. I want everybody to go to the website. It's DannyWuerffel.com. You can see all about everything you're doing now, whether it be public speaking, Desire Street Ministries, which is just tremendous. Danny, thank you so much. God bless you. We will definitely have to catch up again down the road. Go Gators this season, and hope that we can get this season off without a hitch the rest of the way, my friend.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And also check out the Wuerffel Trophy. It's a college award for community service. I'm really excited and proud about that. There's links to that on my website, and keep your ears open. Maybe when one of your teammates, wherever you live, or one of the players on the team you root for is a nominee or a finalist or perhaps the winner, doing community service, making the world better. So thanks, guys. Noah, thanks, Clint. God bless you. Take care.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks.